When my husband lost his job, I paid all the bills. When I lost mine, he said, "You're just dead weight." His family agreed, "You were always the burden." I left without a word. 5 years later, they were rejected from a major business grant because the final reviewer was. I never thought my life would turn out this way. We were living in Round Rock, Texas, in a cookie-cutter neighborhood that smelled like fresh mulch and desperation. Jack and I had been married for 8 years. 2 kids, a mortgage, and a house that was too big for what we really needed. Jack worked as a project manager at a tech company. I had a part-time job at the library and ran a small Etsy shop from home, handmade jewelry, mostly. It wasn't glamorous, but I loved it. When Jack lost his job, it was a Tuesday. He walked in, dropped his backpack by the door, and didn't even look at me when he said, "They let me go." Just like that. No warning, no plan. I remember the weight of those words, the way they hung in the air like smoke. I told him we'd figure it out. I meant it. I picked up more hours at the library, even took on extra shifts shelving books after closing. My Etsy shop became my side hustle on steroids. I started taking custom orders, worked until my fingers cramped, stayed up late packing and shipping. I even signed up for a temp agency and took odd jobs, anything to keep the bills paid. Jack? He didn't do much. He filled out a few applications in the first month, maybe 2. Then he stopped. He'd spend hours playing video games, scrolling on his phone, or napping on the couch. I'd come home exhausted, and he'd be sitting there, beer in hand, watching YouTube like he didn't have a care in the world. I didn't complain, at least, not at first. I figured he was struggling, that he needed time. I wanted to believe we were in this together. But the months dragged on, and nothing changed. 2 years. I paid every single bill for 2 years. Mortgage. Groceries. Car notes. Kids' clothes. School fees. Jack's family didn't lift a finger either. His mom, Martha, loved to call me lazy behind my back, saying I should have gone back to school years ago, as if I hadn't been the one keeping her son's lights on. His brother Greg? He'd smirk and say, "Must be nice having a hobby job," every time I mentioned my Etsy shop. They'd all sit in their big family dinners, Jack included, acting like I was some leech sucking them dry. Then, in the spring of 2019, the bottom fell out. The library cut hours, budget issues, they said. I lost my job. My Etsy sales were already slipping, the market was oversaturated. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the termination email. I was shaking, trying to figure out how we were going to make rent, how we'd buy groceries. Jack walked in, took one look at me, and said it like it was nothing. "You're just dead weight now." I stared at him. My heart felt like it cracked. He kept going. "You've been a burden for years. My family always said you were holding me back." I wanted to scream, but no words came. I just sat there, feeling the air leave my lungs. I think that was the moment I realized the man I married wasn't coming back. That night, I packed a suitcase. Just a suitcase. A few clothes, my laptop, and the kids' photos. I left a note that said, "I'm done." No long explanations. No begging. Just that. I left before sunrise. Didn't say goodbye to the kids, they were at Martha's house for the weekend. Didn't leave a forwarding address. Just vanished. The first few months were hell. I crashed on a friend's couch in San Antonio, got a job at a coffee shop to pay for a tiny apartment, and started rebuilding. I enrolled in online classes for business administration. Nights were long, working a shift job, then studying, barely scraping by. But I kept going. After 2 years, I got an internship at a small venture capital firm. It wasn't glamorous, getting coffee, doing spreadsheets, but I showed up every day, on time, ready. I learned everything I could. I networked, stayed late, took on extra work. My bosses noticed. Promotions followed. I became an analyst, then a senior analyst, then an associate partner. I focused on early-stage funding for small businesses, especially women and minority-owned. It felt good to help people who were in the same place I'd been. 5 years later, my life looked nothing like it had before. Then, in early 2024, their name showed up on my desk. Jack's family business. It was a brewery they'd always talked about starting, Jack, his brothers, and Martha. I remembered the endless dinner conversations, the big dreams, the way they used to laugh at me for selling jewelry on Etsy while they planned their real business. And now here they were, applying for a major small business grant. Their application was sloppy. Vague projections, generic marketing strategies, and no solid financial plan. It read like a half-baked college project, not a serious business proposal. And I was the final reviewer. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the application. It felt surreal. After everything they'd put me through, they had no idea I was sitting on the other side of that table. I thought about recusing myself, really, I did. But then I remembered Jack's voice, cold as ice, telling me I was dead weight. I remembered Martha's sneers, Greg's smirks. The way they all watched me drown and did nothing. So I did what they never did for me. I told the truth. Their numbers were inflated. Their projections were unrealistic. Their plan was weak. My report was honest, direct, and backed by data. Final recommendation, reject. I didn't feel guilty. They wanted a fresh start? They'd have to do it without my help. I didn't hear from them directly, but I kept tabs, couldn't help it. Their brewery's launch stalled. Investors pulled out. They'd already told everyone they had the grant in the bag, so the fallout was public and messy. Jack? Last I heard, he was managing a car wash. Funny how life works sometimes. The fallout from the grant rejection hit them harder than I expected. A few weeks after the email went out, I started seeing posts pop up on social media. Jack's brother Greg was ranting on Facebook, talking about how their dream got crushed by small-minded people who couldn't see potential. Martha chimed in too, posting passive-aggressive quotes about jealousy and fake supporters. They never mentioned my name, of course. They didn't know. But the whispers started. One of the junior partners in my firm, Lisa, mentioned it offhand in a meeting. Hey, did you see that brewery out in Round Rock? Their grant got denied, and investors are pulling out. It's a mess. I just nodded, playing it cool. But the twist came when I heard from an unexpected source. Sarah. My old neighbor. She reached out to me out of the blue, texted me late one night, said she'd been thinking about me, that she missed our late-night chats. She didn't know where I had gone, said the whole neighborhood had been buzzing when I vanished. Curiosity got the better of me, and we talked. She filled me in on the details I hadn't known, how Jack had told everyone I'd run off because I couldn't handle the pressure of being a wife and mother. How his family had spread that story all over town. That hit me hard. They'd rewritten the narrative. In their version, I was the unstable one, the unreliable one, the woman who abandoned her family. And Jack? He was the poor man trying to hold everything together, the devoted dad struggling to pick up the pieces. I felt sick. But it got worse. Sarah told me that Jack and his family had started talking about reapplying for the grant, this time through a different channel, one that I didn't have direct authority over. They were even reaching out to an angel investor I'd worked with in the past. They were still trying to make it happen. I sat there, phone in hand, feeling a storm build inside me. They were going to keep pushing, keep pretending they were the victims. And the thought of them succeeding, after everything they'd done, not just to me, but to the truth itself, it made my skin crawl. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to just walk away. If they wanted to play dirty, I was ready to get my hands dirty too. So I sat on it for a few days, weighing my options. Part of me wanted to let it go. Just walk away, let karma do its thing. But then I thought about the years I spent struggling while they sat around judging me. I thought about the lies they told, that I was unstable, unreliable, that I abandoned my family. No. They didn't get to rewrite the story. Not without consequences. I made some calls. I reached out to the angel investor they were trying to charm, Mr. Whitman. He respected me, we'd worked together before. I scheduled a coffee meeting, laid out the facts. Quietly, calmly, with proof in hand. Their numbers were inflated. Their projections were fake. They'd been telling investors they had grant approval when they didn't. Mr. Whitman's face darkened as I spoke. He didn't like liars. By the end of our meeting, he promised he'd pull out of any talks with Jack's family. But I wasn't done. I knew Jack's family was reapplying through a different grant channel, one I wasn't directly on. So I went to the board. I laid it all out. The application issues, the false projections, the fact they'd already been rejected once for the same reasons. I didn't mention my personal connection. I didn't have to. The facts spoke for themselves. The board flagged their application as fraudulent. It triggered an audit. And that's when the house of cards fell. Turns out, Jack's family had already sunk investor money into the brewery, money they didn't have yet. They'd told investors the grant was secured, using that promise to get cash up front. When the audit started, it all unraveled. Greg's social media rants turned into radio silence. Martha stopped posting her smug little quotes. Jack? He disappeared from social media altogether. A few weeks later, I got a call from an old friend in Round Rock. You won't believe this, she said. The brewery was shutting down. Investors were suing. There were rumors of a lawsuit over misrepresentation and misuse of funds. Jack's family was drowning in legal fees. And Jack himself? Turns out, he'd taken out a second mortgage on the house to cover business expenses. The house I once called home was now in foreclosure. I should have felt satisfied, but I didn't. Not yet. I needed to see it. So I drove back to Round Rock. Just for an afternoon. I parked a block away, walked up the street, and watched from across the road as they hauled equipment out of the brewery. Jack was there, looking older, thinner. His shoulders were slumped. Martha was pacing, yelling into her phone. Greg stood off to the side, hands on his hips, face pale and stunned. And I felt nothing. No pity. No guilt. I turned to leave. But as I walked away, I heard someone call my name. Anna? I turned. It was Jack. He'd spotted me. For a second, we just stared at each other. Then he jogged across the street, stopping a few feet away. You did this, he said, voice low, almost like he was afraid to say it too loud. I met his eyes. I did my job, I said, flat. Something you never did. He just stood there, mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. Then he whispered, you ruined us. And that's when it hit me. He still didn't get it. Even after everything, he thought I was the villain. The one who ruined them. Not the man who let his wife drown while he sat on the couch. Not the family who judged me while I worked myself to the bone. I gave him one last look and said, no. You did that all by yourself. Then I turned and walked away. As I drove back to San Antonio, I realized I didn't care what Jack thought anymore. I wasn't just a survivor. I was the one who wrote the final chapter. And in the end, the story was mine to tell.